Yeah, we're live.
What time does the 7 o'clock meeting start?
7 o'clock. 7 o'clock. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Brian. We start every session of Position of Neutrality with a prayer, and Wayne's here tonight to do that.
Hello, everybody. How are you tonight? Heavenly Father, we thank you for your presence. We thank you for your salvation. We thank you for answered prayer, Lord God. Tonight, our friend Lolita is sick, and we just pray for healing and comfort in that family. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Wayne. So anybody that's new or not familiar with what we do is we take a look at the suggested instruction for a step or so a week directly out of this book, and we use this book in 12-step recovery. Why?
Because it works.
Yeah, the process described by the authors of this book has been proven to work for addicts of the hopeless variety, addicts to alcohol and other substances. Yeah? And we got to give a shout out to Elliot Walker of the Edmonton Alano Club and all of his Saturday morning group. Appreciate you tuning in to us. He sent a note this week to tell us he was watching. They watch on delay. So anyway, so we're going to dive right in. Tonight we're taking a look at steps 10 and 11. Hopefully we'll give you some revelation that you haven't seen shown to you before from the author's experience. I like to start in page 83 of your book if you're following along in a book. And if you're not following along in a book, just I have the book in front of me so I can show you where the material is coming from. I recommend that at some point you get a book, because the reality is if you let me tell you what the book says to you, then you've given me the power to think for you. And that's true for anybody. You just take their word for whatever they're dishing. So it's a good idea to have your own source as you're tapping into the source within you. Make sense? Because the revelation that may come to you from what I say may not be what I say, but it has meaning to you. But only if we're agreed on the testimony of the first 100. Yes? All right. So I'm on page 83 of the book, and it starts out with, some of you have been to AA halls and you're familiar with these words. Some of them hang them on the walls and call them the promises. I've seen signs that say they're the 12 promises. They're neither of that. They're the 9-step promises. Just remember, some drunk hung them on the wall. And the reason they're there is they're there in order, and they're talking about an awakened spirit within you. And so it's not about, worldly things. It's about awakening to otherworldly things. Yeah? So it says, if we're painstaking about this phase of our development, we'll be amazed before we're halfway through. So what phase of our development are we in here? We're getting ready to embark on step 9, right? We're reading. So it would make sense that okay, so I've learned to take personal inventory. I've learned how my fears drive me. I've learned a little bit about how I think and how I emote, how my treatment of others has caused some harms to me and others. Yes? All right, so it says we're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. They use the word new. So you want to think about, what does new mean? Yeah, unlike anything I've experienced before. So this isn't just regaining what I once had. This isn't just being chemical free. Remember what you prayed for in 3 if you follow directions? What did we pray for? Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. By this stage, that new freedom is you're getting free of you, so you're finally free to be you, an authentic you, the way you were intended. Does that make sense? Some of you are feeling that. Who's feeling it? Somewhere, okay. So, and then the new freedom, the new happiness comes with not having to cover, right? It's kind of an automatic, will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. Why not? Well, I've seen the part I played in my past, and I've seen the harms that I've endured that I thought were my fault that weren't my fault, and I've learned to sort some of that out. And now I know that I have a purpose, that people a lot like me can be benefited by me and my testimony when I'm properly armed with the facts about me. Yes? So now I'm realizing that what I thought was the worst of my life is somehow giving me purpose and direction for moving forward. Yeah? Any of you had any bad experiences that have been converted for good for your brothers and sisters? Like to a person, that's what happens, right? And it's our obligation to go out and deliver it. All right, so we will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. Look at the words comprehend and know. The authors mean the words they say the words they mean. How does one comprehend serenity? Yeah, because it's a state of being. So the only way you could comprehend it would be to find yourself in it, isn't it? And how is it? How do you know peace? Yeah, it's not a worldly experience to know peace, is it? How many of you have found yourself at peace in difficult times? Yeah, that's what it is to know peace. My peace today is not dependent on my circumstance. That's different. Yes, that's an awakened spirit. All right. So no matter how far down the scale we've gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. There's a condition to that. You'll have to go employ it. And you're going to have to go employ it not in a glorifying way of your experience, but in a truthful way. I was this. I was selfish, dishonest, inconsiderate. I was not fit to live in a free society. And I was put away. And I was told I probably would never get to do it again. And then I encountered this power, and he has delivered me so radically that not only am I fit to live here, I'm fit to bring others back from the dead and live here with me. Does that make sense? Does it resonate with people? So that feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. How many of you can recall living in that feeling of uselessness and self-pity? That happens in sobriety too, doesn't it, folks? I got a lot of people who, so we got to stay moving. It's a manner of living. It's not a one and done. All right, so okay, look, none of us get here because we're one and done clients. So anyway, we'll lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Why? Yeah, Ricky, I like people to bring that up. I used to look to people to see what I could get from them, and this power has changed me to where I look to see what I can add to them. And that was not on any thought or effort on my part, right? Okay, and then self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. How many of you have had that experience? How many of you at least pointed out to your new guys and your new women, the fear of economic insecurity leaves us because we confront it, which means that you're not doing anything wrong if you're experiencing great economic insecurity. It's part of the promise being delivered in you. Does it make sense? Because sometimes you'll see the guy at the car dealership, the promises are coming true. I don't know whose promises, but not AA's promises, because it's never about worldly things. So I just don't want anyone confused that's trying to grow in the Spirit and understanding the benefit of growing in the Spirit. Yes? All right, so we'll intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. How many of you have learned that? How many of you have learned that there's not much effort in staying away from whatever addictive thing you were at? That's not an obsession anymore. Have you ever considered what a miracle it is that is not a driving obsession? We'll suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. The more of this you do, the more of that you'll know. I'm not going to get into that one tonight, but then we jump right into, are these extravagant promises? So I got a bunch of people in the room here tonight say, yes, they are extravagant promises. And the authors immediately point out, we think not. So why do you think they included that? It's really a full presentation, isn't it? How many of you guys had a hustle? You sold it, right? Sometimes did you fear you oversold it? So you'd oversold it so much you needed to sell it some more. So they just told us all these things that were going to happen to us because they happened to them. And then they're looking at the room, right? And they're going, no shit, really? So they really want you to consider really what's been done for you. That's what they really want you to consider. So they're being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. They wouldn't tell you that if they weren't going to lay out precisely what that looks like going forward, right? So then it says, this thought brings us to step 10. So what thought? They will always materialize if we work for them. They will always vaporize if we don't. They don't bother to point that out. But if you have found that all these promised freedoms of emotion and thought have left you, it's because you're not serving, right? You're going to know to get busy. What do I need to do? All right, so which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. So they said continue. So if I'm going to continue, when did I start? Personal inventory. Yep, when I did a step 4, I started. I want me to continue doing what I did there. And then continue setting right new mistakes. When did I learn to set right mistakes? My product of 4 and 5 was a list in 8, and right? And so instead of having a long list going forward, I'm going to do it as I go along. How many of you have noticed you screw shit up as you go along? So don't lug it in a bag, man. Unload it. Okay. All right. So we vigorously commence this way of living as we cleaned up the past. They talked to us about a manner of living and how it works, didn't they? Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program, usually men and women constitutionally incapable of being honest. So they're going to tell you the program and the manner of living precisely here so that you've got a shot at grasping and developing. Does it make sense? And the reason I tell you that is you're not instantly struck honest and saintly because you put down the rig. You put down the bottle. That's not what happens, right? We walk it out, or we act our way into better thinking by offering ourselves in service. Yes? Yes. So then it says, we have entered the world of the Spirit. That's declarative statement. Yeah. Think about that. Half of these guys were atheists or agnostics, but to a person, we have entered the world in the Spirit. That didn't say some of us have. We have. So what is it like to have entered the world of the Spirit? They just described it to you. New freedom, new happiness, not regret the past, wish to shut the door on. It's an inside thing, right? Yes. I don't know what's different, but everything's different. Okay, so then it says our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. So understanding of what? Effectiveness at what? That's good. Yeah, sometimes it takes a minute. How many of you have grown in understanding of yourself as being mentally ill, at least with regard to alcohol or drugs and what have you, rather than just simply bad? Yes. How many of you have grown in understanding of other people when you've met some people that seemed to be willing to help you and other people hadn't been willing to help you? How many of you grew in your understanding of what people were talking about when they focused you on the experience of this power we call God instead of some theology? Right? Because if someone calls to our attention, that right there that you and I are sharing, that's the power we call God. All of a sudden, all that mistreatment, it's like, here I am at my worst, disclosing the worst about me, and I'm okay right now how I am. Not only am I okay, but I'm anointed and appointed. Yes. Think about that, how powerful that is. Okay, so, and effectiveness at how to apply it, so you know it, okay? This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. That puts to rest the idea I've worked my steps. The works are with people, not with process. Understand that. And the way that the process works through me is if I follow these disciplines in my servitude, more and more will be revealed to me and through me. Yes? So then it says here, we're going to get into discipline now. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. So I'm going to continue. When did I start? We don't have Sean here tonight to scream out in my force. I contend that the 4 steps simply revealed to me what I was seeing. That I've been pretty good at spotting selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear in all of you people all my life. What I didn't know is I was seeing it through the lens of my thoughts. And so what I was perceiving was me. And so until I could learn to get my thoughts out of the way, my judgments about a given situation, I wasn't effective. In fact, I suffered. Does that make sense? So I'm going to continue doing what I did, but I'm going to add the rest of the disciplines I've learned. Yes? Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. So I'm clearly not asking God to strike my fellows, am I? No, there's another book that they mentioned many years ago. They said, how can you see the speck in your brother's eye when you can't see the plank in your own eye? Better you should remove the plank from your eye so you can better see to help your brother. They were talking about this discipline. Does that make sense? Yes. And you will never do this if you don't know this power we're talking about is real. Yes. And you have a part to play in it. Right. That's why we need to have a step 2 encounter, because you're never going to improve conscious contact with a concept. That's a mental diagnosis, but it's not a spiritual condition. All right, so we discuss them with someone immediately and make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. Notice how they're not talking to you about another person at once. They're expecting you to grow in prayer and meditation. So if you can work it out with you and your Creator, by all means, as you awaken, you will. But if not, then you can always go to a trusted person. Does it make sense? Yes. And then it says, then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. I point you to the steps if you see them anywhere, if you can bring them up in your mind's eye. Which of those steps indicate I can help me? Absolutely none. So, but I am uniquely qualified to help you because I'm not as involved emotionally in your stuff, so I can see it. So I was always designed to help you as you were designed to help me. That is the design of divine organization. Does it make sense? So that's what we're getting back to. Then it says we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help, so it'll be whomever or whatever that I'm confronted with. And then they remind us that love and tolerance of others is our code. So love what? Tolerate what? Yeah, more you guys that are more religious, hate the sin, love the sinner. Separate human behavior from humans. Right? Because the only way I know anything about human behavior is I've had experience with it. Right? And so I've often misperceived it, just as other people have often misperceived mine. So, a bit of grace would help, yes? Yes. All right, so we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. Wow, Kimberly was a warrior for that alcohol, I could tell. For by this time, sanity will have returned. She brings up a good point. A lot of us we just think, I don't pick up no matter what. And then I went to AA and they said, just don't pick up no matter what. And I just decided to get sober. Dude, I wish I had the power of that kind of decision before I burned down all my houses and shit. Lost my families, lost my cars, lost everything worthwhile in life. Yeah, I just decided. Dude, I was delivered. And I think if you'll take the minute that Kimberly brought up, sanity's returned. Right? This is not that. A lot of people get here and go, well, I've tried that before and I always failed, so I don't think I want to do that again. You're not that guy. That guy died. When you made that decision, you became new. So whatever happened in the past, it's either for your benefit or it's a victory that was stolen from you that's going to get paid sevenfold. But you need to keep moving forward, right? Because you're in decision. All right, and we seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. So think about those two conditions. How many of you can remember your early days of sobriety really did need accountability? You needed people to watch you, because every time you thought you had them. I can remember being tied to a bed in a hospital, and they finally loosened my straps to let me go out and smoke, and I ran across the parking lot with my butt hanging out in that weird gown and bought a drink. I needed to be contained, restrained. So what I'm telling you is when that stopped happening, I didn't pause to think what a miracle that was, but there is no other explanation. And seldom tempted, and if tempted, recoil as from a hot flame. So we react sanely and normally. How many of you have had times in your life where people describing you would not have used those words? Because we got all kinds of emotional baggage, right? It's not just the way we respond to chemicals. We respond to a lot of things in the world abnormally. Yes? So, and we will find that this has happened automatically. The answer to what do you do today to stay sober? Nothing. There's nothing I can do. What I do today is I serve my fellow man to stay fit. Different. It is a distinction and a difference. We'll see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. So do you have a new attitude about liquor? What is it?
Neutral. Kicks my ass.
Well, I just think people should examine it because it drove every facet of my life. And all of a sudden now I see people destroying their lives with it and go, why can't you stop them? I said, no one could have stopped me. I'm not that guy. I can bear witness when they're ready to hear. I can drive them to the detox. I can do all of those things, but what I can't do is outpower that alcohol. So that's the miracle of it. We're not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. You remember how you arranged every aspect of your life around the dope man and what you were going to go get, how you were going to go get it, how you're going to get the money to go get it, who you're going to promise to pay next week so you get a little here so you can make it to there? None of you were in the neighborhoods I was in? We're not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. It doesn't drive me. You know why? Because the fear doesn't drive me the same way anymore. So we feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. Notice how they talk about it as a feeling. How many of you got through your fifth step and you suddenly knew something was really radically different in you? That's usually where, sometimes I hear it earlier, but usually that fifth step, when you finally get everything out, you feel so unburdened and not judged, and you just feel like whatever has happened, I'm not that guy that came into here. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. So what's the problem? We got this problem they described as selfishness, self-centeredness, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-seeking, self-delusion. So we don't know exactly, but at the root of all my problems is a loss of identity driven by fear. So the whole point now is to stay awakened to who you are and whose you are. If you know that, you can do anything but fail. Make sense? All right, so it does not exist for us. We're neither cocky nor are we afraid. Now they're pointing us right back to fear for sure there, right? That is our experience. Notice how they're not talking about theories. They're not talking about their opinion for you. This is the book entitled Alcoholics Anonymous, the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. And the foreword to the first edition says, we are the first 100 men and women who have recovered. To show other alcoholics precisely how we recovered is the main purpose of this book. And in those words, they're telling you once again, this is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. Right after they had said, this is our experience. It's so important we don't add to this testimony or take from it. We share our experience as it aligns to this because there's consequences for changing revelation. Those of you who read that other book know what I'm talking about, and know I'm not talking to you about something I fear. I know people don't get well if we pretend that we know something better than the revelation that's revealed here. So it's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. How many of you have had more than one go at recovery? So it is easy. Sometimes people never really did the program of recovery and they just came to meetings and then they bounced and, okay, well, that's kind of a mulligan. You really you didn't relapse because you never got well. But the reality is you could embark on this and then fall off into your disciplines. And I don't know about you, but I get certifiably crazy relatively quickly when I'm not in. Because I'm still given to human rage and ideations and all kinds of things. I mean, the ego just remanifests. Okay, so we're headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. We're not cured of alcoholism. That's a pretty profound statement. Guys, it's the reason we continue to persist in this manner of living is I wasn't cured of anything. I have a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. And my spiritual condition requires more of me than sitting in meetings and pontificating wisdoms. I need to be in the trenches lifting people up. I need to tell them, look, wherever you think you are, I see you elsewhere. Because we get to speak to him in the spirit. I get to see, if I got sent to you, it's because he wants you well. And I can speak to you of wellness because I've seen illness. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. So, how do you know how you're doing with your spiritual condition?
You're not fighting anything or anybody.
Yeah, you're right at the beginning. We've ceased fighting anything or anyone. So if what's going on is disturbing to you and you're not seeking guidance, there's something going on with your spirit. Check it out. Make sense? It's not a judgment, just what's up. Okay, so it says every day is a day we must carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. So which day?
Every day.
Which activities?
All.
How many of you got here and thought, it's okay, God can have my addiction, but I got this career stuff. I got this relationship thing dialed the fuck in. Yeah, and all our activities, and we laugh, guys, but all of us that have been here a minute will tell you we are different today than we were then, and it's because of our effort to serve and our nothing is more humbling than getting used to really speak life into people who don't know life. There is nothing more humbling that a human can do. There is no greater honor that a human can have bestowed than to get to speak life to the lifeless. And we get to do it. And as we start to realize what a gift it is to get to do it, all the worldly stuff fades away. So this is how they do it. It says, how can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, in parentheses, be done. So that's how they did it. If you don't talk in King James language, you don't have to do that. But basically, whatever's going on, that's God's will. Now you're going to need perspective. Does it make sense? And the not mine is in parentheses because as you fully awaken, you'll realize there really isn't God's will and my will. There's God's will and my opposition to God's will. So that opposition will go away as we awaken. Does that make sense? Even for hard tasks, guys. And I don't know everyone in the room tonight and their history, but I do know Jeff knew that when he started coming and growing in this thing, he was going to get to go do some prison time. And he walked right to the last day and then went and did his prison time. And he carried this message the whole time he was down. And when he came out, he came back to the meeting and told people, God sent me there for a purpose. And he never whined, right? So all I want everyone to understand is sometimes we have to walk through very difficult things. But if I know I'm walking through it for a purpose, I can. That doesn't mean I'm happy to go. There's a difference between obedience and whatever else it would be to embrace. I've been homeless 3 times in sobriety. Now, I don't talking about, couch surfing. I mean, no casa. Every time it happened, I knew it was going to happen. It never gets any easier for a human to lose every shred of their dignity and try and find a place for themselves where nobody wants you around. I'm sober today. I didn't want to go through any of those experiences, but I was made better because I was put through those experiences. And I can talk to people today that don't hear it from others because they just know that I know. Like Wayne says, you know it and you're a knower. All right. So these are thoughts which must go with us constantly. When? You're going to notice the more you grow in the Spirit, the more your thoughts attack without warning, right? So you're going to have to stay disciplined in these things so that you can cast it out, right? This is power to demolish strongholds that we have. So you take captive every thought and you submit it to the power within you. Does that make sense? Okay, we can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It's the proper use of the will. Much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction from Him who has all knowledge and power. If we've carefully followed directions, we've begun to sense the flow of His Spirit into us. So some of you tonight have had that experience. Those of you online, those feelings, those movements of your spirit, that's what they're talking about. As you're getting revelation, as you're getting inspiration, we're talking about the tangible reality that we call God. That moves in and through us and changes our minds. It redoes us, right? Do not conform to the ways of this world, rather be transformed through the renewal of your mind. You do that by participating in selfless service. Not the kind that requires a camera, the kind that requires unending grace. Does that make sense? To some extent, we've become God conscious. So when they're talking about consciousness, they're talking about the awareness of being aware. So that means there's at times in my day that I know I'm not alone in me. That's why I center in the morning. That's why I recenter during the day, because I need to know in some aspects of my being that there's more going on than what's going on just with my thinker. Yes? This is power to comfort me philosophically, they said. Have you ever been at odds philosophically with a situation in which you found yourself? How many times this week? Yeah, so I need that power to calm that storm in order to be effective. Yes? All right, so we have begun to develop this vital sixth sense. So what is this vital sixth sense I'm developing? Spiritual fitness is God consciousness. Awareness of being aware. Does that make sense? Yes. But we must go further, and that means more action. Oh, these dudes never let up. They're just telling us what to do with our thought life. Everything in here has been talking to us about our thought life. We're going to get more into that now as we look at the 11-step discipline of not only talking, but hearing. Yeah? Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. Better men than we are using it constantly. It works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. So there's a promise and a condition. So it would help for me to know what the proper attitude is. Does anyone remember what they said the proper attitude was?
Honestly, watching and willing to make an effort.
And where'd you get that from?
Earlier in the book.
Yeah. Yeah, it helps to learn how to read this book because they tell you one of the first things they tell you and more about alcoholism is that we learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost self. This is the first step in recovery, right? And so you can't do that based on a lie. So I'm not going to bring joy and clarity to a moment I'm trying to avoid. So to Aaron's point, Bill said he laid this kit of spiritual tools at his feet and I picked it up. Right? I honestly wanted to, and I was willing to make the effort, which means that we as people that are introducing people to this manner of living need to be able to explain to people logically what it is that's in front of them, right? Yeah. So they can examine it with their logical senses. All right, so then it says that it would be easy to be vague about this matter, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions. So have you heard vague constructs around prayer and meditation and left yourself confused? Yeah. Have you gone to lots of different recovery halls and they had some form of a meditation meeting, but they really didn't seem to grasp the depth that I'm supposed to be in prayer and meditation all day as I go along, not once a week at the meeting with the gong in it? I got nothing against meditation as a practice. It's not AA practice. Add it to your AA practice. Does it make sense? Yes. When we retire at night, we constructively review our day. So admit it. Is that changed behavior? Constructively reviewing your day? Yeah. Because we didn't always constructively review our day, did we? We didn't always constructively or destructively review our day. Oftentimes we destructively reviewed somebody else's day. Right? Okay. So were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? What was I supposed to be looking for all day as I went along? Selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. They knew already I would have lapsed. Yes? Again, we're not saints, but we are willing to grow. So if you, in this review, you feel like you've coasted through a few hours, now's the time to clean it up, right? All right. Do we owe an apology? How many of you, when you were new, had someone to call? My new guys, when I get them here, I tell them, you call me every day for 30 days. Why 30 days, Joe? Well, because you'll either be doing it still at 30 days or you won't call me or do it. If you don't see benefit, you won't do it. But I'll guarantee you someone will call me, and that'll make sure I do mine. Does it make sense? Yes. So have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with another person at once? How many of you have had something to yourself and you didn't? That's not a call to run out and make an amends. That's a call that if you're struggling, call your sponsor. Take it to prayer. If you're not getting direction, call a trusted friend. Right? So were we kind and loving toward all? How many of you checked that box a lot until you realized they were talking about in your thought life? I get my new guys, yep, kind and loving toward all. And I said, in your thoughts? Oh, no. Matter of fact, I'm kind of pissed at you. Should we discuss it? So, what could we have done better? This isn't, we're not beating each other up anymore. We're not beating ourselves up. We're not into condemnation. Look, all I need to know is that when I'm awake, I know better. If when I'm awake, I don't do better, then I better start stepping up my game. Right? But I still hose it. I still behave badly. I still go off. That's not counted against me because I got tools. But if I know I'm going to hurt you and I set out to hurt you, I won't get to do it long. Because that's the mind that drove me here. So what could we have done better? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? How many of you have found that when you're in fear, you start thinking about what you're going to get or what you're not going to get, and you're incapable of seeing what you could be doing?
Right.
That's why it's helpful to have friends in this thing so that they can see that in us and say, hey, man, I had a friend he would call me, my language was a bit coarse. He'd say, how you doing? I said, it's just fucked. And he would just inevitably say, well, get some clothes on. We'll go and fuck it. And we'd end up at a shelter or, and anyway. I was afraid to sponsor people in the beginning too, and I told him that I don't want to hurt them. He says, dude, you cannot fuck them up any worse than they already are. Yeah. We talked worse in those days. That's all I'm trying to tell you. So were we thinking of ourselves most of the time, or were we thinking what we could do for others, of what we could pack into the stream of life? So there's always a reset. What do you think those 10 and 11 step disciplines are about? The minute I turn my thoughts to another, a window opens into my consciousness and power flows in. It happens every time for every human. So if you'll just turn your thoughts to others, power will come into you to do better, even when you don't feel better. And if you don't believe me, take it out for a walk. Prove me wrong. All right, so of what we could pack into the stream of life, but we must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection. We're done. Condemnation's dead now, right? Don't go there. That would diminish our usefulness to others. If I'm perfect all the time, what's the likelihood those people are going to call me that feel like they're flawed? They're not. The benefit of peer-to-peer is we all know our own subtle insanities. And so we know what we're seeing and we know what we're hearing, and we have to own our own. We have to be authentic that we still think that way, even though there's a power in us that empowers us not to act that way a higher percentage of the time. Yes? So after making our review, we ask God's forgiveness. It's a good point. We really want to focus on power if that word God bothers you, because I'm never going to ask for forgiveness if I don't understand that is, I'm an instrument of forgiveness, spearhead of God's ever-advancing creation. The only way I tangibly feel forgiveness and forgive, that I'm forgiven, is to offer forgiveness through me. It's the only way it happens. That's when it's really tangible. After asking for his forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. For those of you who are early in the journey, why do I want divine forgiveness? I just got to forgive myself. No, I'm sorry. Forgiving of self is not a thing because it's a divine act. What you need to do is believe in the one he sent, who dwells in you. And we're not condemning. Does that make sense? All that stuff was for a purpose. It's your job to go utilize it to unpack. Yes? So on awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. So we went from when we retire to on awakening. What happened in the middle? So how many of you have woken up or had some kind of revelation in a dream state? How many of you have had the experience of thinking, man, I gotta act on this, and then we went and peed or something and it just left you? Because it does happen. That's why when Bill was writing this book, there's some lore that says he would have these revelations, wake up and scribble on a pad next to his bed, because he learned the same thing we learned. If you get up and do anything physical, it's gone. And you also have things that happen in your psyche, but you're not going to be able to discern what's instruction and what isn't until you start getting in these practices and disciplines, right? So on awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. How many of you have had a plan for the day and it was not at all what happened that day? How many of you reacted badly to that outcome? How many of you had taken the time in prayer and meditation, and when the plan changed, you just changed focus and went and did what you had to do, because that's what you had to do? So the difference between centered in the spirit and And when people call me, I forgot to pray today. I said, well, either you do that regularly or you haven't yet seen the benefit. But the reality is I don't ever even roll out of bed without checking in. And not because I'm a saint, but I just know what happens to me when my feet hit the floor. So before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Those of you guys that don't like all the King James style prayers, please direct my thinking, especially that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, self-seeking motives. And this isn't just when you wake up in the morning. It's anytime you wake up during the day, right? Because we're talking about your spirit awakening, not your physical awakening. Does it make sense? So when somebody bothers you and you snap at them, the discipline comes back, right? Bless them for awakening you. Don't curse them for disturbing your slumber, right? The guy in traffic, you know the guy, the difficult people, put in your path to show you you're a difficult people. Under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance. What's it mean to employ my mental faculties with assurance? I can trust my thoughts. How many of you have been told that people don't trust your thinking? Or maybe not in exactly those words, but when the courts talk to us, when employers sever our arrangements, they're usually telling us they don't trust our thinking. Yes? Now they're saying in this awakened state, you can employ your mental faculties with assurance. And for after all, God gave us brains to use. Now they're going to talk specifically about the thought life. Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. So what are the wrong motives they identified?
Dishonesty, self-pity, self-seeking.
Divorced from those thoughts, I can employ my mental faculties with assurance. Why would I want to get up and say prayers? Because I'm tired of running into my own stuff, right? So in thinking about our day, we may face indecision. So they're talking about a common human condition. Any of you ever face indecision? If I do this, then what? If I don't do this, then what? We may not be able to determine which course to take. Have you ever? I got all these choices. A lot of you guys that came out of prison, and all of a sudden you walked in and like there's choices everywhere. And there had been no choices anywhere. They told you what to wear, when to eat, what to eat, when you ate. So we can get easily confused, and this is a point to avoid that, right? So we ask God for inspiration, and then they tell you, I've had people, I don't know how many times ask me, well, what do you mean with meditation? And it's hard because it's a practice, but the product of it is an intuitive thought or a decision. So a decisiveness where indecision was. A thought comes to me that was not there before. I used to think that I came up with a thought, and then it was limited in how certain I was at employing it. When I know now thoughts come to me, I not only receive them, but I'll often speak them to bring them forth. Does it make sense? These are practices you'll learn as you get more advanced, but if God says it and you hear it, if you say it, you'll see it. So you can speak your own plan out as long as you've checked it out with the Creator, right? All right, so this says we relax and take it easy. Why? Have you ever prayed and meditated, but you already had an outcome in mind? And then you'd get an answer, and you're like, oh, no. Let me explain it again. So we're going to have to let go of our old ideas. Remember, I've told you guys, we don't even know our old ideas until we go out and try and help others. We have old ideas that attack us in our meditation. And you're not going to know what they are if you don't allow the Spirit to inform. Yes? So we're often surprised how the right answers come after we've tried this for a while. So what do they mean, tried what for a while? Ask for inspiration. Rest as long as I can. If it hasn't come, ask again. Ask until it comes. Do what's indicated. Keep asking for inspiration. Does it make sense? All right, so what used to be the hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. They're promising you that as time goes by, life will be life, but you won't be an enemy of life. Yours or anyone else's. Does it make sense? So being still inexperienced and having just made conscious contact with God. Okay, so I've awakened in the spirit, but it's not just one bump and done. It's a growing influence of that spirit on my life, informing my decisions and my speech and all of those things. Yes? Yes. So it's not probable that we're going to be inspired at all times. Why do they tell you that? Because none of us are inspired at all times and all of us want to be. Right? And we would be exhausted, quite frankly, if we were inspired at all times. Have you ever really had some inspirational blasts and then you get done and you can't even freaking stand up? But the reality is there's a reason promises are in the book. The promises are for when you're not inspired. Re-up. Go help somebody else, right? All right, so we might pay for this presumption with all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Sometimes you're going to tell people about something that's coming, and they're going to look at you like you got two heads. Yeah? Some of you know my history. I told people for years that we were going to have a reentry center for people coming out of prison. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, we're going to bring them in. We're going to get them jobs. We're going to do it. We're going to do it all on one roof. Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're going to buy a hotel. Yeah, bring 300 or 400 of them at a time. And what could possibly go wrong? Plop them right in the middle of Phoenix. You guys are giggling because you know it happened, but what I'm trying to tell you is when it had never happened before in the history of this country, I was talking about it. And it was an idea that came to me. It wasn't anything I came up with, which is why I'll guarantee you, some of you people that would get me online, I'll send you a video link to that entire program being prophesied 2 years before we owned the building. Yes. Well, no, before we filled the building, about a year before we owned it. Anyway, but we described the size of the building and the construct of the building, having never seen it. Anyway, so nevertheless, we find that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. We come to rely upon it. That's a promise. Claim that. Don't look at me and think, oh, that old guy's crazy. No, I was crazy. I'm telling you the truth, that if you'll do these things, you will have eyes that you will never have to trust these eyes again, which is handy. We usually conclude the period of meditation with a prayer that will be shown all through the day what our next step is to be, that we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. How many of you had big problems coming and you just didn't know how you were going to fix it? How many of you got in your prayer and meditation and somehow you got through it? How many of you can't describe how you got through it? You just know you got through it. We heard a sermon, Wayne and I heard a sermon one time. He said, all of the Israelites ran to the edge of the Red Sea and were very disappointed to see no boats. So my word to you tonight is quit looking for boats when you serve the Almighty. Because He's going to deliver you if you got to walk through on dry land. All right, so we ask especially for freedom from self-will and are careful to make no requests for ourselves only. We may ask for ourselves, however, if others will be helped. We're careful never to pray for our own selfish ends. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that, and it doesn't work. You can easily see why. If you haven't put the manner of living in practice, you may not see it, but as you walk it out, you realize most of my circumstances were preparing me for my destiny. Right. So I didn't need to be delivered from them. I needed to be empowered through them. Right? So if circumstances warrant, we ask our wives or friends to join us in morning meditation. You'll know if circumstances warrant. If we belong to a religious denomination which requires definite morning devotion, we attend to that also. If not members of religious bodies, we sometimes select and memorize a few set prayers which emphasize the principles we've been discussing. So you guys can pick those out or do whatever you would do. There are many helpful books also. Suggestions about these may be obtained from one's priest, minister, or rabbi. Because they didn't know specifically what constructs you were struggling with, go to someone that's learned it in the other book, and they'll point you in the direction of some stuff that'll help. Yes? And it's not just one book, it's many books as one learns in time. So be quick to see where religious people are right. Guys, you ones that have been hurt by religious people and that turns you off, they didn't say that they're right. It says see where they're right. I've been a member of churches and I've been a member of recovery, both for a long time. And I can tell you there's lots of people in recovery that have never read this book or know what it says. And there's lots of people in church that have never read their book or know what it says. Because they ain't teaching the gospel. We're teaching the gospel. Be quick to see where religious people are right. Make use of what they offer. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful and ask for the right thought or action. We constantly remind ourselves that we're no longer running the show. Why would I need to constantly remind myself that? Because I go to sleep and I think I am, and it's got to be my way or the highway, right? And it gets me in trouble. So I've got to keep humbling myself, yes, in the circumstance. Saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. Remember I told you that not mine would be gone? Because now I'm awakened and ready to serve. And sometimes we get sent in difficult places under difficult circumstances, and the fear is palpable. But my certainty in my identity allows me to move in it. Yes? So we are then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. We become much more efficient. We do not tire so easily, for we're not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. Then a simple promise. It works. It really does. If you'll do these things, you'll receive these promises. And the promises are never external. It's always internal. It's consciousness, right? So it says we alcoholics are undisciplined. Is that true? Drug addicts, undisciplined? So we got to learn to discipline at the thought stage, yeah? Whole new way of thinking. So we let God discipline us in the simple way we've just outlined. So we're going to let him discipline us, but I've got to participate, right? But this is not all. There's action and more action. Now that I'm awake, it's time to go be the hands and feet. Yes? Yes. So faith without works is dead. You think that's an accident they put that there? No. Cast out demons. Go prove the power to you through you. Yes. The age of miracles is still with us. Make sense? Yes. The next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12. See you in a week. Okay. There we go.